Patch 13.18 is here, so let's go over all those changes and how they affect our tier list this week. Starting off with the buffs, we've got Aurelia, Gwen in the jungle, Kennen, Senna and Thresh. The champions being nerfed are Jarvan, Kayn, Rel, Tryndamere and Xayah. Bard is getting some changes too that definitely seem more like buffs than adjustments. Stormraze is getting some more AD, Spear of Shojin is getting less AD, Crown of the Shatter Queen gets some big changes too, and Static Shiv gets adjusted again for the millionth time this year. So let's jump into the top lane, and in the S tier we have Aatrox, Camille, Darius, Fiora, Alawi, Malphite, Olaf, Poppy, Quinn, Renekton and Tryndamere. Olaf remains one of the strongest top laners in the game as he goes yet another patch without any nerfs, and the recent buffs to Stridebreaker and Goredrinker didn't exactly make him any worse. Olaf is one of those champions you can easily run away with games on. You get a few kills early game, you become unkillable, and you can run your enemies down with your ultimate every single time it's up. Quinn has risen back into the S tier again after just having a ridiculous success rate this patch. Now, she's not the most popular champion in the game, so she has got a little bit of an inflated OTP win rate, but that's not to say she isn't worthy of being there. Quinn can bully lanes and be impossible to play against early game, but then she has exceptional roaming, fantastic burst, and let's be honest, her scaling isn't too bad either. So if you do want a top lane pick to play against those pesky melee bruisers, Quinn is a great option. Tryndamere has already been hit with some nerfs this patch, which is obviously expected, but we just don't feel like they're going to quite make up for the extra auto attack range he got given last patch. Tryndamere is one of those champions who can just run away with games so quickly, and if he gets a few kills in those early levels, which he's more than capable of, he will simply start diving his enemies on repeat with his ultimate, dealing crazy amounts of damage and being incredibly difficult to shut down. His mobility, his burst, and his ability to split push like the king he is makes him a real threat right now in the top lane and the mid lane meta. So if you haven't been playing him already, here's a reminder to pick him up again. Moving into the jungle now, and in the god tier we have Rek'Sai and J4. In the S tier we have Bel'Veth, Evelynn, Fiddlesticks, Kha'Zix, Lilia and Nocturne. Yes, despite the passive nerfs to J4 and the 5 AD less on Spear of Shojin, we still think he's going to continue to be OP. Rek'Sai survives another patch with no nerfs, and Kayn moves down from S to A with his ones. So Nocturne has been underrated for quite some time, but has recently been gaining popularity because people are finally realizing just how strong he actually is. Now, don't get me wrong, if you do look at the very high ranks, he does tend to fall off, but in the majority of elos, his win rate is a bit too juicy to ignore. He's got a very easy jungle clear, fantastic ganks from long range with his ultimate, and he can easily snowball and start one-shotting backlines with just a few items. The buffs to Stridebreaker recently helped him out further too, and we've decided that this week he's proving strong enough to be up there in the S tier. We also moved Lilia up to the S tier this week as she's been proving just how strong she can be with her crazy movement speed, damage over time, CC and engage, and everything in between. A fed Lilia can be one of the hardest things in the game to deal with. So if you are looking for a jungler who's not quite as contested as the big guns but still equally as strong in the right hands, we recommend picking her up. She is a lot of fun to play and works into so many different comps, so give her a go. Despite the meta bouncing and shifting around him, Fiddlesticks remains as one of the most consistent, highest performing junglers in the game, with a seriously impressive win rate for many months now, and those OTPs are always some of the scariest players to come up against. Fiddle always has the opportunity to carry fights and games with just one good ultimate. So whenever you are playing him, don't give up if things don't go quite to plan early game. Just clear some camps, get the items you need and dive into teams at the right moments, and you'll carry a ton of games. Over to the mid lane now, and in the S tier we have Ahri, Akshan, Cassiopeia, Kennen, Lux, Neeko, Orianna, Pantheon, Swain, Sylas and Vex. Yes, the Kennen buffs this week are pretty massive as he'll be getting significantly less cooldown on his ultimate, plus some energy buffs to his E as well. Now, the reason we've included him in the mid lane is because his success rate in this role has been far more impressive than that in the top lane for quite a while now, and we expect people to realize this pretty quickly and early on into this patch. Kennen mid offers a steady lane phase but ridiculous power spikes once he's level 6 and with each and every item. His early ganks and roaming is strong, and his early team fights around objectives are incredible, as that AoE, CC and damage is not to be underestimated. So if you're looking for a new pocket pick to play, we definitely recommend picking him up. Vex's buffs have seen her soar up those tiers now, and we finally feel confident that she's worthy of the S tier and the majority of ranks. The great thing about Vex is that she's really easy to pick up and learn, but this doesn't take anything away from her ability to stomp and snowball and carry games really easily. She has great poke in lane, fantastic CC and amazing damage in team fights, and with her ultimate she can dive in, one-shot backlines and reset her way to easy wins. Orianna seems to have been buffed one time too many after seeing her name in the patch notes so frequently recently. Orianna just brings so much to the table, starting with her consistently in games and comps and ending with huge AoE damage, utility and control. Orianna is super enjoyable to play. She really fulfills that utility mage playstyle, and honestly just landing one good 3000 elo shockwave is enough to make you fall in love with playing her. If you haven't already been playing her, don't miss out. Down to those AD carries now, and not really too much is going to change here. In the S tier we still have Ashe, Ezreal, Kai'Sa and Vayne. Jhin is definitely one to watch out for this week though, as the buffs to Stormrazor will probably see him bounce back into a decent spot. Originally Riot were intending to buff Jhin and his item at the same time, but seem to have removed his individual buffs for the time being. He's been one of the most consistent AD carries in the game since his release, and although he's not really been awful recently, he hasn't been quite as reliable of a pick in recent weeks, with the static Shiv wave clear meta taking hold of the game. This patch he is probably going to make a bit of a return though, so if you do enjoy Jhin, crack on. Despite more changes to Shiv, Kai'Sa remains one of the most consistent, blind pickable and versatile AD carries in the game. You've got a bunch of different builds and setups from Shiv into full AP, hybrid or traditional crit AD carry. All of these options are performing well in all sorts of different games. She really is a great champion to main at the moment with these different build options, and she offers so much in games. She's got a super solid consistent lane phase that you can play very aggressive with the right support, or keep it passive and scale up if you need to. She's got wave clear, burst and self peel too, which is basically everything you need to outplay your enemies against all of the odds. Ezreal is still a top tier AD carry to play too though, and as we're just a few weeks away from the Worlds patch, it is safe to say he's probably going to stay this way for at least the next few months. Ezreal is probably the AD carry with the highest potential out of the whole roster. He is literally hit or miss with every bit of damage he provides. So if you are a skill shot sensation, there's not really many other marksmen that come close to his ceiling. Ezreal does take some practice to pull off perfectly and consistently, but when you do get the hang of it, he's just an absolute terror to come up against. The constant poke, the constant burst and mobility too make him so hard to beat. So if you do enjoy this guy, just keep playing him. Finally, let's jump over to support, and in the God tier we have Soraka and Blitzcrank. In the S tier we have Janna, Lux, Pyke, Rakan, Rell, Senna, Thresh, Xerath and Zyra. Rell is being nerfed again this week, but not enough to move her out of the S tier. Senna's buffs to her crit damage and her W's AoE now counting towards her passive proc have brought her back up to the S tier this week. She's already been performing really well recently, and this little change is enough to bring her back up there with the big guns. Senna is a fantastic scaling, damaging support, offering long range DPS and crazy utility too. She may be a little bit vulnerable in those early levels, but becomes an absolute weapon in the later stages of any game. With the Jhin buffs bringing him back into the scene too, this lane pairing is a very nasty one. But genuinely you can play her with so many different AD carries. Bard has got some interesting changes this week to his passive movement speed and his W shrines that kind of feel more like big buffs rather than adjustments. We've moved him up to the A tier this week and in the S tier for our high elo tier list, which you can check out in full over on our website by clicking the link in the description. Bard offers insane amounts of outplay potential and utility, and he's one of the most skill expressive champions in the entire game. His ultimate is an absolute game changer. Sure, you can kind of imp with it, but if you get it right, it's probably one of the best ultimates in the game to set up fights or save your teammates from huge wombo combos. Bard may not be the strongest in 2v2s or in the lane phase, but his roaming, scaling and creativity definitely make up for it. Finally, Thresh is also receiving some buffs to his W's passive soul ratio this week, and although this might not be the biggest change in the world, he's already been one of the best supports in the game all season so far. He just has everything you need in a support to really express yourself and come out on top in all sorts of situations. From stomping lanes with perfect hooks and flays to saving teammates with clutch lanterns. He really does have it all. And although recently the sustaining powerhouses have been taken over a little bit, Thresh will always be viable if he stays this strong. And due to the fact that Riot are buffing him this patch, it's a great sign that he's not going to go anywhere anytime soon. That's going to bring us to the end of our patch 13/18 tier list video. We hope you guys enjoyed it, and don't forget to check out Mobalytics before you go to download our in-game overlay, which gives you all the best builds, runes, matchup guides, combo breakdowns and so much more. Thanks for watching guys, and as always, take care.